Hi everyone, Dr. Nani Burns here. It's raining now, so you might hear some raindrop noises. Today I'm going to explain one common mistake students make in their essays that causes confusion and loses points in the TOEFL Integrated Essay. Not using modal auxiliary verbs like would, could, must, may, and cannot. Why modal auxiliary verbs matter? Take this example. Dinosaurs lived at the North Pole. The sentence uses simple past tense, which is used for past fact. But since nobody knows for sure whether dinosaurs lived at the North Pole, the sentence is incorrect. Dinosaurs could have lived at the North Pole. Now this sentence is correct as it expresses past possibility. Using modal auxiliary verbs is crucial in the TOEFL Integrated Essay. Why? Because in this section, your job is to summarize arguments from the lecture, which in turn is a response to arguments in the reading. In other words, both the reading and lecture involve making inferences, that is, drawing conclusion from evidence. While the evidence itself might be factual, the final conclusion drawn from that evidence are not absolute truths, but rather possibilities. When summarizing, you must distinguish between facts and possibilities. Failing to do so creates confusion.
How do you do that? For facts, consider when the fact was true. Depending on the situation and logical tense agreement, you will need to use simple tenses, am, was, will be, progressive tenses, be plus present participle, perfect tenses, have, past participle. Since TOEFL integrated discussion topics can be about past, present, or future events, tense choice is critical. Past events use simple past and past perfect. Present events use simple present, present perfect, or present progressive. Future events use simple future or future perfect. When stating straightforward facts, simple tenses are best. However, when showing time relationships between events, perfect tenses are key. Past perfect, used for events before other past events. Present perfect, used for past events, relevant now. Future perfect, used for events before other future events. These tenses are used for factual statements, what we call the indicative mood. Before talking about possibilities with modal auxiliary verbs, let's briefly consider impossibility or situations contrary to fact, also known as counterfactuals. To talk about impossible facts, English uses the subjunctive mood. To express present impossibility, use the subjunctive past, if past verb would. To express past impossibility, use the subjunctive past perfect, if had past participle would have past participle. Understanding subjunctive mood is essential for the TOEFL integrated essay because professors often use these structures when making inferences. If X were the case, Y would happen. Meaning, because X isn't the case, Y isn't happening. If X had been the case, Y would have happened. Meaning, since X wasn't the case, it didn't happen. The role of modal auxiliary verbs. Another way to express possibility is by using modal auxiliary verbs. English has 10 modal verbs: can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, must, ought to. These verbs add nuance to other verbs, expressing meanings like possibility, ability, obligation, permission, and prediction. When used for certainty or possibility, they can be ranked from strongest to weakest. 1. Must, strongest certainty, it must be true. 2. Cannot, can't, absolute impossibility, it cannot be true. 3. Should, ought to, strong probability, it should be true. 4. Will, high likelihood, it will happen. 5. Would, hypothetical conditional, it would happen if. 6. Could, possible but uncertain, it could be true. 7. May, slightly more formal possibility, it may be true. 8. Might, weakest possibility, it might be true. In American English, could, might, and may are often used interchangeably for lower possibilities. Expressing past possibilities. For past possibilities, you must use the structure modal verb have past participle. For example, dinosaurs must live in the North Pole. Incorrect. Dinosaurs must have lived in the North Pole. Correct. Why this matters. Using correct tenses and modal verbs is essential when summarizing the arguments. Otherwise, your response will confuse the reader and you will lose points. Trust me, mastering this will seriously boost your essay score. Now let's look at a sample question and put this into practice. TOEFL got you stressed? Don't worry. Dr. Nanhi Burns has been where you are. Just like you, she had to prove her English proficiency and aced the TOEFL and GRE with top scores. Now, as a PhD graduate from a top US university, she's here to help you do the same. With proven strategies and personalized guidance in reading, writing, and speaking, you'll learn exactly what it takes to boost your TOEFL score and reach your goals. Learn from someone who's been there and mastered it. Get started today, drnanhiburns.com. Success starts with the right strategy. Let's make your TOEFL journey a winning one. This is the question. Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they challenge the specific theories presented in the reading passage. Okay, let's look at the introduction in the reading. The main claim can almost always be found at the end of the paragraph. When the 52 Hz whale was first detected, the cause of its uniquely high-pitched song was unknown. However, scientists now have several theories to explain it. So we can expect that there are 3 theories that aim to explain the cause of the 52 Hz whale's high-pitched sound. Let's look at the first theory. Observe the modal auxiliary verbs while reading. It states, may be a hybrid, and so may have a unique song. Since the question is to summarize the lecture arguments, you generally don't need to explain the reasoning in the reading. Now, let's look at the listening lecture. We have a scripted version. The lecturer says, remains a mystery, so we don't know the cause. Let's look at the first counter-argument. This is a subjunctive past sentence. If the 52 Hz whale were a hybrid, it would likely do the same. Doing the same refers to traveling together with normal whales. So what is really said here is, since the 52 Hz whale is not a hybrid, it does not travel together with normal whales. We know this through scientists listening to the locations of the whale's song. What is learned from listening is that the whale travels an unusual migration pattern and alone. So this is a way to summarize the arguments while correctly indicating tense and possibility. One theory presented in the reading to explain the cause of the 52 Hz whale's unusual high-pitched song is the hybrid theory. The professor refutes this theory by appealing to the whale's unusual migration pattern. He asserts that all hybrid whales observed so far follow non-hybrid whales and travel along with them. So if the whale were a hybrid, it must follow the pattern, but it doesn't and travels alone. Therefore, it cannot be a hybrid. Using must and cannot makes your response clear. Let's move on to the second argument. This is the second theory in the reading, which is that the whale has a damaged hearing ability. May is consistently used here since we cannot be sure, but it's plausible, like whether whales learn to sing just as humans learn to speak by listening. Now let's look at the lecture script. The first cannot is not for inference, but for ability. However, must be and cannot be are making inferences of certainty and impossibility. This is a way to summarize the second argument using modal verbs. Another theory in the reading is that the whale has a hearing disability, causing it to sing the unusual song, as it may not have imitated other whales' songs. The professor rebuts this claim as well. According to her, the extremely high pitch comes from the whale's physical throat structure. And there's typically no connection between hearing and throat structure. So the extreme pitch could not have come from the whale being deaf. The third theory in the reading is that the whale could be a rare whale species and that it is the only known one to us. This implies that the whale's song should be typical for its species. It's atypical to us because we only have one of a kind. Let's examine the professor's response to this. The professor refutes the claim that the whale is the only known member of a rare species. The reasoning for that is, if it had its own species, its parents would have sung at the same pitch. This is a subjunctive past perfect form. If other 52 Hz whales, such as the parents of today's whale, had been around at a relatively recent time, scientists would have heard them. This means that since other 52 Hz whale species were not around, scientists didn't hear the sound. So this is a way to summarize the argument using modal auxiliary verbs. The professor also counters the third theory in the reading that the reason the whale sounds so unusual is simply because it is the only known member of a rare species. The professor maintains that this claim is implausible due to the lack of evidence. Scientists have never heard the 52 Hz sound from any other whale. Surely the whale should have parents, and since sonar technology has been used underwater for a long period of time, we should have some record of a similar sound from its parents. But there is no record of hearing the 52 Hz sound.
This is a sample response that puts together the three summaries with an added introduction.
The reading presents three possible theories that may explain the cause of the 52 Hz whale's unusually high-pitched song. However, the professor rejects all three theories as implausible. One theory in the reading suggests that the whale could be a hybrid between two different whale species. The professor refutes this theory by pointing to the whale's unusual migration pattern. He asserts that all hybrid whales observed so far tend to follow non-hybrid whales and travel along with them. If the 52 Hz whale were a hybrid, it would be expected to migrate with non-hybrid whales. However, it does not and instead travels alone. Therefore, it cannot be a hybrid. Another theory in the reading proposes that the whale may have a hearing disability, which prevents it from learning and imitating other whales' songs, causing it to produce an unusual sound. The professor rebuts this claim as well. According to him, the extremely high pitch results from the whale's physical throat structure, which should be independent of its hearing ability. Thus, the extreme pitch could not have been caused by deafness. The professor also counters the third theory, which suggests that the whale's unusual song could be due to it being the only known member of a rare species. He argues that this claim must be implausible because no other 52 Hz whale sounds have ever been detected, despite the fact that underwater sonar technology has been in use for a long time. If the whale belonged to a rare species, its parents would have also sung at 52 Hz, and scientists would have recorded their sounds. However, since no such recordings exist, it is reasonable to conclude that the whale cannot be a member of a rare species.
This is the question with the audio.
Part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
While scientists have attempted to explain the 52 Hz whale's unusual song, each of their theories is flawed, and the whale's uniqueness remains a mystery. First, it's unlikely that the 52 Hz whale is a hybrid. Its migration pattern is too unusual. All hybrid whales that we know follow the migration patterns of non-hybrid whales, and so all hybrids typically travel together with normal whales. If the 52 Hz whale were a hybrid, it would likely do the same. By listening to the locations of the 52 Hz whale's song, however, scientists have been able to determine that it does not migrate alongside other whales. Unlike all other known hybrids, it has its own unusual migration pattern and migrates alone. Second, deafness or poor hearing cannot really explain one important feature of the 52 Hz whale's song, its extremely high pitch. The pitch actually depends upon the physical structure of the whale's throat. You see, just like in humans, the vocal sounds that a whale makes originate in its throat, in its vocal apparatus. To produce a song of such an extremely high pitch, the throat structure of this particular whale must be very unusual. And this unusual throat structure cannot be caused by a damaged sense of hearing because there's typically no connection between hearing and throat structure. Third, It's also unlikely that the 52 Hz whale is the only known member of a rare species. Even if the species was rare, the whale had to have parents. Those parents would have also sung at the 52 Hz frequency. But the technology that detects whale sounds underwater has been in use for many decades. So if other 52 Hz whales, such as the parents of today's whale, had been around at a relatively recent time, scientists would have heard them. But no such whale songs have ever been heard before this one.
Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they challenge the specific theories presented in the reading passage.